The China deal was it was actually pretty funny. If you see here, like if you look at like the NQ, like there was like a big dump in the futures market right here. So there's like right around, I don't know, it's right around maybe glass number 3 of beer during the day. Some guy, the Trump's trade deal guy, was like, hey, the trade deal's off because of the coronavirus. What's his fucking name? Jabroni. Something Jabroni. So, like, he's like Trump's trade guy, right? So, Jabroni comes out and is like, hey, trade deal's off. Futures market just dumps down. And then after, he was like, well, you know, I think maybe I was wrong. Like, so then he comes back, Jamama or whatever his name is. He comes back. He's like, I think I changed my mind. And now the market's actually higher than it was. I'll tell you what, I've been doing a long time. There's only one. That type of stuff only happens when there's some collusion going on. There's some collusion going on. So Macaroni or whatever his name is, probably like 80 years old. His buddy owns a hedge fund. Is probably like, man, I got a couple shorts I'm getting smoked on. I gotta get out of these things, man. Can you help me out? It was epic. Man, I love the markets. You know, the best thing about the markets is why you always have to get educated, spend a lot of time, on this, is that this, it's a game of the smartest, most crooked, most devious people around. And that's a game you want to be in, don't you? That's a game you want to be in. So let's take a look. The market's gapping up. It's about 0.8%. We're starting to break out of this trend line here. We've been consolidating now for really under this level for, about 10 days, give or take. And we're starting to bust out of it. So we're at all-time highs. I mean, once you're at all-time highs, the suction to go higher is endless. The suction to go higher is endless. You can go much higher than you think, much longer than you think. And that's where we're really at with this. There are some smokers, though, on, in terms of just watch lists. If you really think about what are stocks that are like moving right now, what are stocks that are moving right now? What can be done about them? What needs to be done about them? If you look at that, there's two aspects of it. The hot stocks of right now have been like, if you look and, kind of thinking of like what is, if you run a scan for like, what's been up the most the last 90 days, 30 days, so on and so forth. What you start to see is like, these are like kind of like new issues. Stocks that are like new or, like SPACs, IPOs. These are the ones that are like really, really going right now. Like newer issues, like stocks that are brand new. So the focus is really going to be on where can you get the most bang for the buck? So like a lot of times, like, you may come in and think like, okay, I've got Dow Chemical and it's on my watch list. It looks good, right? But it's a matter of like how good. Meaning that there's, in a hot market, there's opportunity cost. That like if you have like a good chart and then you have a great chart and one moves 5%, but the other one moves 15%, and you put the same amount of capital, then your money's not being used in an efficient manner. So you may think like, wow, like I did a good job. I got a few percent out of this thing. But if the other stock you were looking at, they had a slightly better chart, if the theme was right or the share structure was right in terms of what it looks like, then guess what, right? You didn't lose, but there was an opportunity cost. So I think today, we really want to focus in on like kind of a handful of these kind of IPO stocks. I think today, Nikola had a big close yesterday. There has been a seller literally unloading his balls around the 70 spot, just like slowly taking it out. But if he ever clears out, then I think we're gonna have ourselves a nice spot. It is notorious to pop and then fade back. So like if you try to oversize on a stock like this, what happens is like it pops up and you think it looks great. It'll drop like $3-4 really quickly. So like say you had 500 shares of this thing, if it drops $4 like in 5 minutes, you're really in some trouble. It's hard to manage the risk. You got to trade it a little bit smaller. I think the key is like let it kind of clear out of this 70 zone. Let it absorb that supply that's there. Soak it up. Once you soak it up, then you're going to be able to go and have some fun. I really like, I'm looking at this one maybe even for potential swing. I think this is a good mark. I kept a couple overnighters every day for the last couple, last week or so. And I'm loath to do that, but with so many gaps, like you have to. I really like this Aloe stock. This is Allogene Therapeutics. I don't know what the fuck they do. This thing was a hot mover though in April. It went from 17 to 60. Now this is like an awesome pattern. This pattern has been money on this type of name. So what happens is it gets extended, obviously. It's got to retrace. So if you go from 17 to 60, you're going to come back. You're going to pull back and really consolidate for a period of time. So when you get like an extreme overbought situation, there's two things that need to happen. One, you have to have a price correction, and then you have to correct via time, meaning it could take a month or longer to digest, right, a multi-100% move. So now you've come back, you've built a nice support here at 40, and you're starting to remount over these MAs. You had a nice push yesterday. This is a good solid range, about $4 worth of range. That's pretty hot. I think that's going to be, this is going to be something. I'm actually looking at this for maybe even like a little bit of an overnighter. This is an IPO stock too. You can see here's hanging out over that breakout spot. This thing, I would not be surprised to see this thing back, in the mid 50s, even 60s. It looks like it's a break that's, on its way. That one looks pretty good. I got Chewy on the watch list today. You're testing right at the top of, this kind of flag that's been developing. I think this one may need one more day, but I think it's getting ready to go. I think it needs one more day of pullback, then it's going to be hot to trot. This FSLY today is, I think, an exhaustion gap on it. Now, everybody and their mom is looking to short this thing. It is up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 days in a row. You got a 90 stochastic, right? So stochastics, anything over 80 is overbought. Anything over 90 is an extreme overbought. The gap today, so the gap up is 5%. That is usually, if you want to short an extended stock, you need the gap. Ideally, you get a gap up. That's an exhaustion gap that can give you that extra room you need. So I'm going to watch and see how this thing starts to open at the open. If it starts to stall out at the open, it builds out a top that I can trade around. This is essentially top of the list for me. This is top of the morning, top of the list. That's my favorite play for today. J-Nug is number 2. J-Nug is number 2. You know what? This thing came cooking out of the gates yesterday and I missed it. And then, meandered around a little bit here. You've got a big breakout that's starting to settle up on J-Nug. Frankly, it looks like a little bit of a multi-day hold. If it can settle out a little bit. If you look at gold, this is a very, very clean move on gold. Let me go to a little bit more cleaner chart. So you got about a 3-month consolidation on gold. If you see here, this is a big breakout if you're going back, quite some time. So if you go back, this is 1, 2, 3 years, right? You're hitting some levels that you're basically breaking out of its 2013 highs. The longer the pattern, the longer the base that you're breaking out of, right? The more powerful a move can be. Now you've got a 3-month consolidation on this. You're starting to bust loose. I think any and all dips on this gold, as long as it starts to hold these levels over here, is gonna be hot. So gold is slow. What we like to do is play the Nug. The J-Nug is a lifestyle. It's a movement. It is, when it's hot, it is the best trader around because you just get a good range on it. It's always got good liquidity. You could do Nugget. Nugget is, J-Nug's cousin. Same chart, they move basically the same. Now I will say, like, so J-Nug used to be a 3x ETF, and they moved them to 2x because like they were getting too wild, and like when they tank, they like always go to 0. So the J-Nug is not as fun as it used to be. It used to be a lifestyle, used to be a movement. Because it was 3x, it had like a lot more, it gave a lot more heartburn, that's for sure. Now it's just like, it's still hot, but it's not going to be as fun. But that is like my second favorite for today. I think that's man, that one's going to be a little bit of a heater. So I missed this yesterday, but you can't really ignore the volume. There's 44 million shares in volume on Sono. Now this one got like pumped up a little bit because Citron Research said like this thing is going to the moon, probably like it. And they had mentioned their note this acquisition target by Apple, which those usually never happen. But who knows? This thing was cooking though. Now it's only got a 59 million share float. Like if this thing wants it's got a semi-flat open on this. I keep an eye on this. Like this was like a non-stop trend. When you see something like that, like you got to respect it. I think that this one's got a chance to keep going. I believe the all-time high on this, the base on this is like, if you see here, this is a weekly chart. This 15 is, this 15 is a nice spot. This 15 is a nice spot. If we can start to clear over this, if you look here, if we start to clear over this 15, you can see this thing in the 20 spot, like really, really quickly. It's got that kind of action, especially the market cap on it's only 1 billion, right? 1.3 billion. So if you think about that, like, you guys probably all seen Sonos radio products or whatever they are, the stereo product. The market cap of like Genus the Penis was like 1 billion when it was getting pumped, right? When it was getting up here. The market cap of Uoni is 1.7 billion. You think about that. Uoni market cap at one point was, 2-3 billion probably. So, the Sono is probably got room to go. That's something, you always just got to kind of keep in mind. Like when you're thinking about like whether stock can go bananas, if you really think like the best movers in this market have been really that like $3 to $15 billion market cap stock, which, in the old school days would have been still a large company, but now they're like, that's considered mid cap, if not even really smaller these days. And the advent of algos has really kind of helped all this stuff. Team has got a nice look here. You got a flat top breakout over here. You had a $10 range. Like this thing's red hot here. If it comes out of this range, this thing has got a chance. It's in the right sector. Software application has been hot. It's been sexy. It's been bonita. All of the above. Like I love this one. Watch any dip on this. If it holds the high of the previous day, I'm probably long on that bad boy too. And then we got kind of like all our other daily traders here, but I think the ZI, I kept a few of these overnighter for the last couple days. This ZI is nice. Like this thing, first of all, you had a move from 32 to 65. Those first few days of the IPO are telling, because a lot of times like these stocks, like they don't do anything in the days of the IPO or after the IPO. You go from 32 to 65. Now you had a nice like 5-6 day kind of compression of range, a consolidation. When you get an orderly consolidation like that, see like how the volume is lower on the consolidation than on the ramp up. So when you get orderly consolidation like that, and you start to like kind of even out, build out some support. When you come out of that zone, it can be very, very powerful. This thing has a chance probably to get, back into the mid 50s. It depends on the market, but we could see this thing 53 today, maybe even 55 in the next couple days. I wouldn't be surprised. I know that VRM, we've been trading this one back and forth, but I'm wondering if this is up too many days in a row now. The move on this was sick. Jason, by the way, that was probably the best trade I seen you take in terms of just like entry and exit. That was like just picture perfect. This one, I do think it drifts towards these highs, but I do think it's up a couple days in a row a little bit too much. The best ones are a little bit more coiled. RPRX. RPRX. This thing looks like today could be the day. So this is an IPO stock. It's a biotech stock. It's got nice consolidation on it. Now, this is not like a small or mid-cap company. This is a $30 billion company. I'm not even familiar with it. I do think if this thing starts to go, so we don't have any cleanly defined, levels just yet, but they're starting to kind of, you're starting to kind of coalesce here a little bit. If it starts to play peekaboo right out of this range, then it's good. So what you want to see on some of these, like to know, like if it's starting to get ready, if it starts prairie dogging, right? Starts prairie dogging, coming out. That's when you know, right? Coming out. Yo, Donkey Kong's been acting like crap lately, Mr. Podell. It may be something that's just like a buy and dips at this point. It may need a longer consolidation. I thought it looked good, but it got hit with some news. I wouldn't say news, but like yesterday, the state of California said they were looking at some other company to do this stuff. I don't know. I didn't really read it, but there was some news out yesterday that made this thing dump end of day. I just see how it reacts around here. As long as it holds over yesterday's low, I think, it's probably still fine. So, short, we don't need too much on the list today. If you really think about it, I would keep these cruise lines. We had some sick trades on the cruisers yesterday. I would not be surprised to see a green to red move on the cruisers, meaning like if they literally fade off the gap, I think that's a chance. Now, there's some SPACs that are moving around too. They're more speculative, but like these kind of names, they have been flying, but this is up too much for me now. But if you see any big dumps on this shill, like anything down to like near the 16 spot, I think that might be like a buy for the next next few days. If you see anything dump down like that, and then what was the other SPAC that's been flying around? FMCI, like this thing is looking like it has maybe one more chance to. FMCI is a merger company. They're buying up essentially some meatless thingy, and it looks like it's holding up pretty well as long as it holds over the 9. Guys, space is coming out of range, but man, space just moves like crap lately. It moves like crap. It does not break out right. Like you got to hit it on big dips. Space just does not break out right. I don't know what's wrong with it, but that's the nature of the game. I do have it like semi on my list, meaning like it's on the list, but it's not a priority due to the fact that it's acting like a sloop. Yeah, man, I tried this. I took like a 20-cent loss on this thing and a 10-cent loss on this thing, trying to time this thing yesterday, and it was just not acting right. There's some stocks that just like, because they're like stuck in range so long, there's just sellers like everywhere. That may be just what's going down with the Space Cadet. Yeah, what are you going to do, right? So I think, my top, though, for today is this FSLY. We'll see what's going on. Ideally, one more big push on this thing. We're going to be good to go. That's the list. I'm sticking to it. It's a good market to trade, but you just got to kind of bide your time a little bit. Like yesterday, for example, like, man, I was like 1 for 3 or something, but the one I got was a meaty one, and that's all that matters. You take your shots, take some small losses, and then when you get your hooks on something, then you start hammering and you just hammer till they ain't got nothing left to give. This is the list. I'm sticking to it. Don't overtrade. Don't undertrade. Do it right. Let's go have some fun today. You know what I'll be doing. Let's go shred, guys.